It's amazing to think about how much variation in light affects us. Many of us experience less sunlight and dimmer days in the winter, especially those of us who live farther from the equator. The lack of sun directly affects our energy, emotions, cravings, sleep, and productivity. We tend to feel we have less energy. We tend to be less social. Many lose interest in favorite activities, having cravings for more carbohydrates. We tend to want to sleep more. I've always been a person who dreads the winter. I've never seen the point in living somewhere where it gets so cold that you just want to stay inside all the time. The only thing I looked forward to during the winter was Christmas and snow. The last few years in Virginia have been particularly disappointing because we just got a dusting of snow every year. So, once the Christmas season is over, there was nothing to look forward to. It almost felt like I had to hold my breath through the unpleasantness of the winter until I got a glimmer of spring emerging. Last year, I had the worst attitude about winter, and I was miserable. I decided this year was going to be different. I came to understand that I determine how something will go for me. I'm not a victim to my circumstances. I get to choose how my life is going to go. And with that comes a lot of reprogramming of old beliefs that have been embedded in my psyche since I was born. I want to go into all the plans I have for this nourishing winter. I'm so excited about it. But first, I want to talk about why winter can be beneficial and so nourishing for us. Everything, there is a season, and winter is a season of rest. Everything on this planet has a season of rest. Everyone and everything must rest. Just as the trees lay dormant in the winter and rest from producing leaves and sap, we need a season of rest and recoup from creating and producing and manifesting. A quote from Melody's Soul of the Seasons: "As humans, we are the only creatures that have problems with rest. Productivity and manifestation are highly regarded and much sought after in our culture. It's where we've been taught to draw our worth." This quote cuts me deep. I'm guilty of craving productivity, but this past year has taught me so much about rest and trust. I've been following my numerology for a couple of years, and it has been fascinating to see how accurate it is. I love to see how everything in the world is tied to basic hidden laws like numerology. This past year was my 2 year, and 2 means to rest, trust, and a lot about using your intuition. It was very challenging for me. I'm not used to resting. I like to be productive and get things done, make the most of my time. But I'm actually excited to put into practice all that I've been taught this past year into one of the most difficult seasons for me. One day I'll make a video on numerology. There's so much to it, but that's more for another time. Just as the winter cold drives us inside during this season of rest, we're drawn inward within ourselves. It's a time to shed old skin, old beliefs and habits. Then gentle care is needed to heal the rawness that shedding causes. If no allowance for shedding occurs, the skin will harden around you, leaving you feeling numb to life. The gentle care necessary after shedding old beliefs and habits and programs looks a lot like mourning. Mourning is uncomfortable for many, especially if you have a belief that life is supposed to be happy. There is a beauty and a pleasantness to the mourning process because it urges you to be ever so present with yourself. If we continually deny presence for ourselves, we may end up a shell of a person. Unfortunately, I know a few people like that. It's not a pleasant way to live. Just think about how much life you are breathing into yourself when you are present with your soul and ultimately God's source. If not being present with yourself is draining you of life, how much more is being present filling you with life? Everyone is divine essence, so being present with the integral part of ourselves is ultimately healing and necessary. Catherine May says, if we do not allow ourselves fundamental honesty of our own sadness, then we miss an important cue to adapt. We seem to be living in an age when we are bombarded with entreaties to be happy, but we're suffering from an avalanche of depression. We're urged to stop sweating the small stuff, yet we're chronically anxious. I wonder if these are just normal feelings that become monstrous when they are denied. A great deal of life will always suck. There will be moments when we're riding high moments and when we can't bear to get out of bed. Both are normal. Both, in fact, require a little perspective. I agree with May. I believe when we deny ourselves the pain, only intensifies. I've recently heard someone talk about the denial of self is directly linked to our reproductive system. While this may be too much information for some, most of my viewers would understand. I've struggled with a yeast infection on and off for the last 5 years, and the idea of this made me wonder, how much have I truly been denying myself? Lately, I've been giving myself this space to be present for me. I've been putting my phone down more, journaling more, processing more. There was one night recently that I just stayed awake for 2 hours, staring at my ceiling, letting all the thoughts be heard. We all have an inner child within us asking, begging us to be present for them, because most likely presence wasn't given to you when you were a child. This space of presence allows us to integrate our past and present, even desires of the future. Integration is key to any spiritual walk. It's integration that we can heal and evolve into the version of us that we came here to be. Here's one last quote from May about wintering. I recognize winter. I saw it coming, a mile off since you asked, and I looked it in the eye. I greeted it and let it in. I had some tricks up my sleeve, you see. I learned them the hard way. When I started feeling the drag of winter, I began to treat myself like a favored child, with kindness and love. I assumed my needs were reasonable and that my feelings were signals of something important. I kept myself well fed and made sure I was getting enough sleep. I took myself for walks in the fresh air and spent time doing things that soothed me. I asked myself, what is this winter all about? What change is coming? When I was first introduced to the practice of presence, I was encouraged to journal for 5 minutes, silent for 10, and journal again for things that came up for 5 minutes. This container helped me to hold space for myself. It truly was uncomfortable at first, but it transformed the way that I gave myself presence. I'd like to list practical ways I plan to enjoy my winter this year with my children and family as a whole. The first one is dressing appropriately. Any weather is withstandable if dressed appropriately. I put little lights everywhere in the house, Christmas tree, window lights, lights outside, lamps. I make sure to never use my overhead lights unless I'm cleaning or looking for something. I put candles on at night. I will even be making my own candles tomorrow, which is something to look forward to. Another thing is rest. Listen to your body. If you feel tired or sluggish, don't push through. Just give yourself the rest that you need. Next is get outside every day, and if it's just for 10 minutes, I aim for 30 to 60 minutes at least of sunlight if it's a sunny day. I always feel better than I thought I would. If you don't own a thermos, definitely get one. It allows you to bring a warm, nice beverage with you wherever you go, and it also keeps you warm. Pull out the fuzzy socks and the cozy blankets. Something I've never done before is a daytime fire. I'm looking forward to doing that on the days when it's unbearable to be outside. I also plan to keep my Christmas lights up all the way through winter this year. Another thing is keeping a gratitude journal. I like to say my gratitude at night in my prayers with my husband, and then in the morning I will write down a few things that I'm grateful for. The last thing on my list is coffee and cake break. This gives us time to connect with our loved ones in the middle of the day and just give us something to look forward to. I have a few journaling prompts for you. The first question is, how will I make up my mind to enjoy winter this year? In what ways have I not been present with myself? What are the anxious, sad feelings all about? What change do you feel is coming? Then give yourself at least 10 minutes of silence to process these questions and answers. I hope this was encouraging to you, and I hope that you have a lovely winter.